Hey, welcome to another video in this series of features for radials and how to make the most out of this application when you're working in ZBrush. In this video, I want to show you how you can further customize your radial menus so that they look more like what you want and what you expect. And if you do things like streaming online and sharing your content and you want to be more on brand, something that sort of like matches your style, your custom ZBrush colors and that sort of thing, this is how you do it. So what I have here is my personal set of tools that I've been creating for a while now, and those are the ones that I use now almost every day. So I just want to show you that this is my custom set of brushes. I have a menu for shortcuts like that, and then auxiliary brushes as well. However, I also have a couple more that I have set up for different things. So I have this Blender one. I'll show you what this does in a second. And then I have this comic. So now if I go into ZBrush and I press the F7, I have access to all of these kind of like comic style icons. But you see, in general, the look is very different from the other ones that I have. That's basically what I want to show you. So if I want to change this, I just did it like this because it kind of like makes sense. But I want to show you the difference between, let's say, my custom brushes that just have like the orange highlight and then the blue highlight when I get to the children brushes. If you compare that with my auxiliary brushes menu, which is this one right here, the highlight is yellow and the children brushes are kind of like this purpley color. Now, the reason I did that, again, you might not even bother doing this, but I like this type of visual feedback and kind of like visual cues that place me in a headspace that I know, like, all right, I'm selecting these specific brushes and this helps, right? And the reason I did this yellow one is purely because when you press the control key on your keyboard in ZBrush, it just turns your cursor to a yellow color. Same thing when it comes to the shift key, it just makes it blue. So that's kind of what I did. I have the yellow one, but I also have this sort of purpley, almost bluish color that reminds me that that's a different set of brushes. It's kind of like the auxiliary brushes, not my main brushes right here. And the same thing for my tools or custom shortcuts. I just made it so that it is green and blue as well, so that I know when I'm selecting something that highlights with green, plus I have custom icons, it is very, very evident. So that's what I want to show you. It's actually very simple, but it's really handy when you want to customize things a bit further. I did want to show you what the Blender does, so I'm going to show you that first. So Blender is just a simple shortcut. It's like the inverted comma key. It just brings this very simple menu. And I've covered this in previous videos on how to create pure text-based menus as well as nested menus. So this is a combination of those two things. I have a single menu that I trigger with just the inverted comma. It's a simple shortcut. And I have a text menu, but each one of these ones will trigger a specific custom menu. So if I click on my brushes, I have all my brushes in here. If I click on the auxiliary brushes, I have the ones that I just showed you before. And if I click on my tools, I have all the tools in here. And then I added an extra one, which is my library. So I have the Alt-1 shortcut assigned in here, which is the one that I use to bring in my library. So basically, from a single key, the inverted comma, I can trigger my main sort of like hub, if you want, of menus. And from here, I can trigger the library, my brushes, the auxiliary brushes, or my tools. So let's go ahead and modify this one a little bit, and then I'll show you how to modify maybe the my brushes, just to make it different. So let's go back in here, and I'm gonna use the Blender here. Also, by the way, just wanted to show you, this is something that if you stream or you share your content, it might be like a nice thing to do as well. That's the reason I did it. So when you're working and then you trigger this multiple times, as it might be your hub, what people read here is the @Blender. So if they want to follow you on Instagram or whatever the case might be, just a tiny thing that it might help you. That's the reason I put it in there. Anyway, so this is how you can change the colors of all that. So if you want to make it more on brand, my colors are kind of like the orange and blue for the Academy, and that's what I use in my ZBrush and all of that. So I could just potentially match to those, but let's do something completely different. I'm going to click on the primary color and I'm going to make it this sort of like, this bright green. And the background, I'm just going to make it something like maybe dark green or maybe like dark purple. It doesn't matter. I'm just making things up here. The secondary, that is basically your children brushes. So I'm going to make those, let's try the same color as what I did before here. For the text, since the background is going to be dark, I'm going to go for a lighter color. And for the menu lines, which are the connectors between the rest, I'm going to also make them green. So let's click on that and let's select this bit right here. And that's it. Let's go ahead and save. So now if I bring in my comma key, this is what I get. pretty simple stuff. We can customize this a little bit further, right? So let's go back in here. Let's go to the edit menu. And this has to do with the actual menu items, if you will. So I'm going to make this into a pill shape. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And I'm going to increase the text size as well. And maybe go for a different, let's go for Tahoma and click on save. Save changes. And now I can trigger that. And you see it's a little bit larger. It's easy to see. So again, this might not go with my branding, but just wanted to show you that you can change it, or you do your own. That's pretty much it, really. We can change a bunch of things and make it really nice. Just play around with those swatches to see what they do, but that's how it works. Now, in a different menu that is not just text-based, so if I take my brushes, for example, the primary, I'm just going to make them this bright yellow, and the background, let's make it yellow as well. And the text, let's make it dark or gray. And the secondary, let's make that purple or pinkish. And the lines, let's go for pure white. Save that. And now if I trigger my shortcuts or my custom menu, it is pretty bright. But again, it might be something that helps. And depending on what you want to do, this might be the way to go. I just think it's a little bit too strong, but the point is that you can change this in any way you want, just to customize it to suit your needs. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is I'm going to revert this back to something a bit more decent, just because it's a little bit hard to deal with that. There we go. Something like that might be nicer. So the last thing I want to show you in terms of the customization is something that might annoy you at first if you don't know how to do it, which is how the menu appears. So if I bring in my shortcut now, you'll see how everything kind of like jumps quickly, like so. That is very convenient for me, but because that's how it works. But you can make it a bit, I would say, a bit fancier, or you can just get rid of the animation altogether if you want to just access things quickly. I made it so that the animations happen really quick, so that you don't notice much, but you can change that. So if you go to the settings, and this happens globally, so it is the same animation for all the menus or not at all. So I have this as the default smooth animation, but you have a few options. So I'm just going to go for my favorite, which is the bounce. And you'll see when I trigger it, it sort of like brings everything and it bounces a little bit. So it is really handy. And again, it happens for all different menus. I do like it. Again, it's very quick, so it doesn't distract me. Even if I want to choose the inflate brush, which is the last one that pops up in this animation, it's still pretty quick, right? So I trigger, inflate, use it, right? So it's pretty easy. Now, if you don't want that at all, and I do get it, if you don't want to have any animation distracting you, you can just go to the snappy, which is no animation. So the snappy will just bring in the whole set of brushes straight away. You see, it is pretty quick to trigger all the brushes. So I'll leave it up to you. Like I said, I like the bounce effect. It just makes it nicer, I think. And it just adds a little bit of fun during your sculpting session, which I think is nice as well. Anyway, that's how you can customize your radial menus. Hopefully this has been of help, and I'll see you in the next video.